we throw it away. The management makes us throw it away. I spent 32 nights in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, in India, at a place called the Gift City Radisson. Much like a Four Seasons anywhere in the world. Incredible facilities, incredible gym, incredible pool. People just couldn't do enough for me. Incredible. The food, the 2 buffets, fit for a king. An amazing, amazing hotel. The one thing I found amazing about the culture while I was talking to the people of India was that every single person stares right through you. Their eye contact, their feeling is just incredible. When you speak to somebody in India, they're actually present, and I found it heartwarming. On my 13th night there, I got to celebrate a holiday called Holi. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a springtime holiday where basically people of India actually paint each other, which is an incredible thing. For me, at 13 years old, I gave up my childhood for my adulthood. So it was like being a kid again, being a kid for the first time. I literally was covered in purple and pink paint like I have never been before in my entire life. I walked back to the hotel about 9:30, and I walked back in, and I look like I'm Barney melting because I am leaving purple paw prints everywhere I walk. And obviously I can't walk back into the restaurant like this, so I go upstairs and I take a shower. And I get back down at about 10 after 10. One of the coolest parts about staying in a hotel for that long is that the maitres and the waiters and the busboys and the staff actually start to understand what it is that you like. And they just give it to you. I don't happen to like my food touching, so they would put all my food in bowls. I came down that night at about 10:15, and my appetizers were set up and my salads were set up. It was incredible. And I ate and I talked to everybody, and at about 15 minutes later, 18 minutes later, I got up to get my main course, and it was empty. The entire buffet was gone. And I called over my buddy and said, "Hey, Sohan, what happened to the food?" And for the first time in 13 days, he couldn't make eye contact with me. He looked down and he said, "We throw it away. The management makes us throw it away." And he had so much disgust in his voice and in his heart and his eyes. And he looked at me and I said to him, "Sohan, why?" He said, "Because the management tells us we have to." And I said, "Sohan, the management's not telling you that." I said, "This is a problem all over the world." He said, "Can you do anything about that?" And I said, "I solve problems for a living. This is kind of a big one, but you know what? Let me go to sleep and let me think about it." And that's what I did. I went to sleep that night, and as I was falling asleep, I remembered a situation with my daughter, Allie, when she was 15 years old. She had her first job working for Starbucks. And when you work for Starbucks as a janitor, and I loved the fact that she was a janitor because I knew she was going to do great things in her life. And in order to do great things, you have to start from the bottom and you have to work your way up. And that's exactly what she did. And about 30 days into it, she got a raise. She no longer only had to do the toilets and the floors. They allowed her at that point to throw out the food. And my daughter, in her infinite wisdom, said, "So why am I throwing out the food?" And they said, "Well, it's very simple. We're throwing out the food because it's very possible that if we gave out that food instead of throwing out that food, that someone might get sick. And we can't afford that. The shareholders can't afford that. Our stock price can't afford that. So we need you to just please throw out the food." My daughter worked about 3 blocks away from the house, so she walked outside, she took all the food, and she put it next to the dumpster. She waited for her manager to leave. She picked up the food, and the next day when I dropped her off at the train station, she takes a train down to Broad Street in Philadelphia, and she walks up Broad Street, and she hands out the food, and no one knows what she's doing. I found out by accident because about 3 weeks later, I get home from work late one night, and they had those great cream cheese cinnamon rolls that I love from Starbucks, so I open it up and I'm eating one. She walks in, she's horrified. She says, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating the Starbucks. It's my favorite." She says, "That's not for you." I said, "Not for me?" She says, "No, you can't have that." I said, "Allie, I've been feeding you for 15 years. What do you mean I can't have that?" She said, "That's for the homeless people." I said, "What are you talking about?" And she tells me this story. And I said, does anyone know you're doing that? She said, no. What if I get fired? I said, Allie, if you get fired, I will pay you. Because that is actually the right thing to do. In life, sometimes we have to do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Sometimes we have to do the wrong thing for the right reasons. And Allie, you are just doing it from your heart and your soul. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I fell asleep. The next morning, Sohan comes up to me and he says, did you figure it out? I said, I didn't figure it out, but I have an idea. When I leave here today, give me 2 takeaway containers. And I'm going to take my 2 hands. I'm going to fill 2 meals. I'm going to go find somebody on the street and change their life. And that was my experiment. And every single day, I took 2 hands, got 2 meals, and changed 2 lives. So the important thing to remember is if an individual takes their own 2 hands and takes 2 meals and walks out of any hotel and any restaurant, we as individuals cannot be sued. And that's the nicest part about this. Everybody on the food chain, quote unquote, is off the hook. And I'm not talking about solving world hunger here, because that's not what this is all about. This is about seeing somebody and just making a difference, a moment of difference. So I mentioned before that I'd given up my childhood for my adulthood. My father went bankrupt for the 3rd time when I was 13 years old. We lost everything. We lost the house, we lost the cars. I can vividly remember when they came and they repossessed the 2nd car. And I remember the screaming at nighttime, 2 o'clock in the morning, as my father figured it out. He ran down the street with a baseball bat and he tried to kill the guy. And if he'd have caught him, he would have killed him, because he did enough damage to the car to prove that. And I remember sitting on the curb as a 13-year-old thinking, man, this is never, ever, ever going to happen to me. And I played a lot of basketball because I was a latchkey kid. And I met a guy playing basketball who happened to be a pretzel vendor, who happened to take me under his wing. And after about 30 days of working for him, where every night if I brought in $75 from selling pretzels, I left with $25 and I'd put it on the kitchen table. After about 30 days, my father, every night I'd be working the Phillies games or the soccer games or a concert or a parade routes on the weekends. And about 30 days into it, Mitch Esrig says to me, Glenn, you're not the same. What is going on with you? And I said, well, tomorrow they're going to take the house. And I need $13,500 tonight. And I will pay you back with interest. And he gave me that cash that day. $13,500 he gave a 13-year-old. And I swore at that minute, I will pay this back and I will pay this forward for the rest of my life. And I dedicated my life to doing exactly that. And that's what brings us to the rest of the story. This is where the story really gets interesting. What if it wasn't just about Glenn going out and making a difference in 2 people's lives? But what if a speaker that's speaking on leadership, for instance, and he's speaking at one of the Taj hotels, and there's 500 people in the audience, and we all know what happens. Anyone who's been to a conference or any kind of a lecture, you all know what happens. You go to breakfast, you leave breakfast, you go to the breakout session, and they break down breakfast and they throw out the food. Then they do it for lunch, and then before the keynote speaker or right after the keynote speaker at dinner, they throw out the meals again. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Let's say there's 500 people in that audience, and 200 of those people can walk over, grab 2 meals, fill up the containers, and walk outside and find the people. Now, I understand that makes it difficult, because where are we going to find all those people? But what if Meals on Wheels or Robin Hood or Pay It Forward or any of the local places that could use this food are all set up to pick up this food at certain times? The speaker gets to talk about something way bigger than themselves. It's an powerful piece. But let's take it one step further. Let's take it that the speaker gets hired by the corporation, the association, the society. And let's say that they get on board. And for every one of these that they put on, they bring in 2 meals, 2 lives. And their purpose is to redistribute the food. That's it. We redistribute the food. Now, the holy grail in all this is when the hotels get involved, because then it starts from the top. The hotel can tell the association, whoever the meeting planner was, what it is that 2 Meals, 2 Lives is doing to their corporate responsibility program, and that every single piece of food that's not eaten, that they've already paid for, is going to get redistributed. Imagine the power of that hotel when that hashtag starts to spread worldwide. That is the beauty of a viral moment again. It starts from the top. Every time a hotel does any convention or anything that brings in a lot of food, but a lot of people and a lot of extra waste that they can't absorb, we redistribute it. The power of the hotel is huge for this moment. The Hyatts, the Marriotts, the bigger the hotels across the world that run conventions and these meetings every single day. The Taj hotels, and right now they have 700 hotels. If they only had a couple hundred of those, do this a couple times a week with 200 people per time doing it, the numbers become astronomical. It goes, the speaker gets credit, the association gets credit, the hotel gets credit, and they're all working off these corporate responsibility programs. Everybody wins, everybody. And the people in the audience get to do something good. The best part is it doesn't cost anybody anything. There is no additional dollars. The hotel is already running the conference. The association is already paying for it. The food is already being prepared. Every single thing that's happening that day, including the people already being there, is in place. And this is a movement that has no additional costs. Much like with ALS, we had 126 million people across the world dump ice water on their head just to bring momentum and clarity to ALS. Imagine what we can do with a movement like 2 Hands, 2 Meals, 2 Lives. That's so simple. All we're doing is redistributing the food. The concept is that we bring in the signage, we bring in the containers. The hotel can pack those containers, the people can pack those containers, the people can give out those containers, or the food trucks will be there at certain times to just pick up what the people did. Imagine what that picture looks like when someone goes, hey, click, just did 2 Meals, 2 Lives, hashtag, click, just did 2 meals, click, just saved 2 lives, click, just made the difference, hashtag 2 Meals, 2 Lives. That is going to be the greatest movement that we've ever seen in America and in the world. This is the kind of movement that can spread like viral. Why? Because it's simple. It's simple. Everybody can do it, and it is simple. We will get to 1 billion hashtags because the multipliers are all there between the speakers, the associations, the corporations, the hotels, and individuals all over the world that are leaving restaurants with their leftovers, or in places like India and Thailand and Vietnam, where you can buy 2 meals for $1 US, grab those 2 meals and make the difference in someone's life and go click, just made the difference in Thailand. Click, just made the difference in 2 meals, Sri Lanka. Pick your country. All over the world. And I'm not talking about solving world hunger again. If someone had brought me food like this, and we had food, but just to be seen is the difference that we can all do. The world could use something really positive right now. This is the perfect time to start a worldwide movement to change people's lives one moment at a time. To me, 1 billion is not a statistic. It's a destination. And it's an idea worth spreading.